Good evening, everyone. I'm Will Rosenzweig. Welcome to Edible Education 2021, our 10th anniversary. This is our inaugural expedition of learning about change making in the food system. It's a delight to have you here. We have 155 people in our virtual classroom tonight, and it's been a historic day, no doubt. I hope that all of you had some opportunity to participate in some of the festivities that have been going on since very early this morning. And it had me thinking a lot about identity. And we're going to talk more about that. One of the things that we do explore in Edible Ed is identity, food identity, how our values and how we identify ourselves and being in the world contributes to our actions and choices and ultimately how the food system works. So this is a class that is special in many regards. It is a course that is offered all across the university. So we have undergraduate and graduate students from virtually every program across campus. Plus, we have a good number of loyal community members who often come to the auditorium on the Berkeley campus when we're able to meet in person. And many of those folks are with us tonight as well. One of the things we're going to really strive to do this semester, the best we possibly can here on Zoom, is to foster a true sense of connection and community. We know that this has been just an extraordinary time for everyone. The last year, you can probably all recall where you were that week when they told us we were going to have to go home and learn from home and Zoom at that moment. And we made that giant, enormous pivot in our lives. And along with the pandemic, we've had just extraordinary political strife. We've had an amazing sort of awakening and painful awakenings in terms of social justice. We've had here in my neighborhood and yours, we've had fires and smoke and the personal experiences of climate change. So we're going to attempt to make Edible Education 101 a refuge. This should be one of your passion classes. This is a place where your curiosity and your interests and your passion and hopefully maybe what you want to do in the world all come together. So this should be a place we hope that is full of hope and full of light and full of support and full of connection. And this year is a very special class because I've had the great privilege and honor to work with a number of co-creators, collaborators, co-designers of the course, and you're going to get to meet them in just a few minutes. They've shaped this theme this year. Each year we delve in a little bit to a different theme. This year we're calling it Seasons of Social Justice. We're going to really look at the impacts on human beings and the food system, on people and their lives and livelihoods, their legacies. We're going to look at systemic injustice and what's being done to transform it. This is a class about food systems change making, and this class is really the brainchild of none other than Alice Waters, a great hero of mine. Really, I'm just trying to think of the right word for Alice, but she is a trailblazing innovator. She's a change maker. We met each other about 30 years ago, Alice, when we were at a conference about social entrepreneurship. We were both on a panel together, and that was a new thing. But she is the standard bearer of the organic movement. She's been working tirelessly for over 50 years. She is a Berkeley alumnus. She started the Edible Schoolyard Project. She is a ubiquitous source of inspiration and influence. She's with us here tonight. I want to introduce her to you now to say a little bit about the sort of the legacy of this, this course, and take it away, Alice.
Thank you so much, Will. And I'm so delighted with everyone who's here tonight. We know what's going on in this country right now. And we we feel like this course is really addressing all of those issues, all of them. Now, 10 years ago was the 40th birthday of Japanese, and we put together a book called The Power of Gathering. And we had on the first page um, a picture of the Greek theater at UC Berkeley. We said, this is a place where we can gather the way they did way back in Greek times, outside and together. And it's an incredible amphitheater. And I, as you might know, was in Berkeley in the 60s. I was educated at a gathering in Sparrow Plaza practically every day when we were talking about free speech, when we were trying to end the war in Vietnam, and we were talking about civil rights. And I can't tell you how it lifted my spirits. It made me feel like anything and everything is possible if we work together. And I've never, ever to this day lost my hopefulness about what we can do. And so at that time, I'd always thought there should be a class about food and the environment at Cal, something that really connected the two together. And Michael Pollan was teaching at the journalism school, and I said, Michael, take this on. Would you do this? And he said, okay. And it was the 40th birthday of the restaurant. So there were a lot of really incredible people in town, like Carlo Petrini, who was the head of the Slow Food Movement International. And he came and gave a class. And strangely, my friend Peter Sellers, the opera director, was in town. And I said, Peter, will you come and give a class? He teaches at UCLA now. But there is a history of this, and it's all online, I believe, Will. It is all online. And so you can go back into 10 years and find these gems of people that came and just offered to speak about the issues of uh, the vast issues of food and agriculture and human values. And tonight it's so wonderful to have Nikiko, why am I stuttering over your name? I've known her since she was a little child because I met her father, Masumoto, very early on in the history of Japanese, and we've been buying peaches ever since, directly from him. And of course, Bryant and Rohana, who's also giving a cooking class today. She was the youngest intern at Japanese. And it's so great to have you all here and to think about food in this very basic way at this moment in time, because food is about love. And to find something that's right now, and I know Will's got a lot of citrus in his garden, but to just give somebody a taste of its sweet citrus, like a quiche, a little tiny little quiche, it really wakes them up and they'll never forget it. Taste is so, so important. So thank you for being here. And I will see you next week.
Yes, thank you
Very
so much.
excited with
Thanks for
Chapter
being here.
4.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, dear Will.
And what Alice says is so true, that this class is really a class that is built on relationships, of many years and goodwill. And we're so graced to have so many guests who have contributed so much to the class. So I'm going to navigate a little bit. One of the things that for the students that are here that we're going to do each week is we're going to do polls. And the polls will help us kind of get information from you and some of your knowledge and your preferences. Some of them will be very functional, some of them will be playful, but for us, they're also a way of us actually taking roll, you know, that old thing called roll. And we're able through Zoom, when you fill out the poll, to to um, to see who's here. And attendance does count a lot in this class. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Alice mentioned that I had a lot of fruit in the garden here. This is a Buddha's hand. This was this morning. This was dawn on inauguration day. It was a new day. And here's our first poll, which I'm going to launch in just a second. Which of these opportunities has the most potential for positive impact in the food system? Please give us your answer, and we'll just take a quick minute with this. We have 175 people here with us tonight. That's pretty good, Alice, with all the inaugural stuff going on. Not too bad. Okay, let's see. We've got about 36% of people. I'll give it just, we've got 30 more seconds on the poll. Let's see if everybody can get their answers in just the next few seconds. Okay, about 5 more seconds to participate in the poll. Again, remember, if you're a student, you need to participate in the poll to get credit for your attendance. So just one last reminder on that. Okay, good. I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results. Can you see that? Nod your head if you can see the results. Great. Thank you very much. What does that tell us? That tells us, I think that tells us that those are all correct answers. And you're going to learn a lot more about each of those during the semester. So thank you for answering that. And now it's going to give me a great deal of pleasure to introduce our co-creators for the class. And I'd like to start by introducing Kenzo Esquivel. Kenzo, where are you, Kenzo? Are you, can you say, let's see if you say something, Kenzo, will you appear on my screen as a
I'm here.
face? Oh, there you are. Good. Now I can spotlight you. This is really fun. Okay. Oh, there's Kenzo. Kenzo's a graduate student getting his PhD in ecology, and we had the pleasure of, Kenzo was in the graduate seminar for Edible Ed last year, and I love the fact that he brought a real, an ecologist's mindset to the class, and it was so refreshing, and he brought really a perspective on systems thinking that I really enjoyed. So I asked him to be the graduate student researcher for the course, and he had a lot to do with helping to shape the design and the flow and the content and the readings, and especially the B courses site, which he turned out to be quite adept at. So Kenzo, please introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what brings you here and why Edible Ed is important to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. Hi, everyone. It's so exciting to see everyone here, albeit virtually after months of planning. Like Will said, my name is Kenzo. I'm a second-year PhD student in the Department of Environmental Science, Policy, and Management. And it was a huge honor to be a part of the curatorial team this past semester. Just to speak briefly to why I'm a PhD student, my research involves kind of investigating the adoption of soil conservation practices in organic farms in California and understanding how these management decisions are made, but then also how they impact soil health and broader ecosystem health. And in addition to my ecology background, I'm also really interested in environmental justice and farm worker justice, and have an ongoing research project that investigates the health risk that wildfire pollution has on farm worker communities. And so those are kind of some of my academic interests. And like Will said, last year I was kind of in your shoes. I was a student in edible ed. And I think the course in so many ways embodies why I even came to Berkeley to pursue my PhD. I think a lot of folks are familiar with just kind of the central role that both Berkeley and East Bay in general have had in the local and organic food movement. And while my training's in natural science, I was really drawn to kind of the rich history of activism, organizing, and radical change making that has been centered right here in the East Bay and in California for the last many decades. And while we're not meeting in person this year, I think both UC Berkeley and the East Bay community will continue to have a huge role in shifting the conversation in the broader food movement towards creating one that's more sustainable and more just. And so I guess for folks who are in this class, you've likely heard kind of this idea or this phrase that the food system is broken, and admittedly it is in like so many ways. But our goal this semester was really to break that down and to apply kind of a specific lens of both social and racial justice and equity to analyzing kind of the food system, the different places where we might call it broken, and then also considering kind of the leverage points for change. And so we wanted this semester to be an opportunity to reckon with the historic injustices that have manifested in the food system, from families struggling to put food on their table, to farmers fighting for their land, cooks and servers who can barely make a minimum wage, and kind of the deep history of land dispossession from Black and Indigenous communities in the US. There are so many examples, and it's absolutely critical, in my opinion, and in the opinion, I think, of the curatorial team, that these are perspectives that are central to envisioning a more just and equitable food system, from the fields to the farm to your forks. And so kind of those were some of our central motivating points in kind of envisioning this semester. And I hope that this class will challenge folks, prompts you to engage with new perspectives, and inspire you to take action ultimately. And so while I'm not officially GSIing this semester, I'll definitely be around, and I think my email's in the syllabus, so feel free to reach out if you are interested in soil microbes or agroecology or local food movements and gardens. I'd happy to be connected with you all.
I'm so glad you offered that, Kenzo, because I think for students, and this class really encourages active learning, experiential learning, and you're connected to not only your own lab, but a lot of other people's labs. And so if you're a student and you need a guide with respect to the different hands-on learning experiences at the farm or some of the projects, Kenzo would be a great resource for that. So thanks again, Kenzo. Thanks for making this semester so great. And we'll look forward to seeing you again. So, and next I'd like to introduce Nikiko Masumoto. Nikiko is a dear friend, a family friend. She is a proud Berkeley graduate. She is really a wonderful and inspiring teacher, and very knowledgeable about the topics that we are going to delve into this year. She is a fourth generation farmer. So one of the things I really wanted to infuse the class with this year was the perspective of farming. And as Alice mentioned, she and her family, her parents, her grandparents, and her great-grandparents have been farming in California's Central Valley for many years. And they are responsible for creating probably the world's most delicious peaches. And so it's certainly something to look forward to. Yeah, Bryant is giving as many thumbs up as he has there. So we won't let Nikiko get away this semester without teeing up how we're going to get the peaches in the East Bay later this year, so we can really get a taste of your family's magic. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce you now to Nikiko Masumoto, a co-curator of the class, and someone who is going to be with us particularly for the first couple of weeks, facilitating some of our activities and adding her own unique perspective to our experience. So welcome, Nikiko.
Thank you so much, Will. It is a real pleasure and honor to be here this evening for a lot of different reasons. This day is a special day. I feel the energy of new beginnings, of reckoning with the big questions of what it means to be American. And I think questions about food are integral to that question. And for me, I wanted to make an offering from the beginning. I come to you as an organic farmer, as Will mentioned. I'm Yonsei, fourth generation Japanese American. And I just want to pause with that for a second. So that means that my great grandparents made the voyage from Japan to these strange shores, not speaking English. And they worked the land as farm workers, unable to buy land in California because the California state legislature actually passed a law prohibiting Asians from owning land. So I just want to hold that space that my great grandparents persevered through that. And then they, along with my grandparents, were incarcerated during World War II for no other reason other than that they were Japanese American. And coming out of those prison camps, my grandparents decided to farm. And I think that is an most amazing act of radical love. In a country that didn't want them, they decided to farm to feed people. So I want to hold space for that. And I want to offer all of my wisdom as a farmer, beginning farmer, and also acknowledge our farm is in the Central Valley, just south of Fresno. This is the ancestral lands of the Yokut people, and our farm is fed by waters from the Kings River in the Sierra Nevadas, just to our east. I come also as an artist, bearing gifts about thinking about process and how it is that we can be present together in this strange and virtual way, but nonetheless a powerful platform. And I also wanted to share, I come also as a UC Berkeley alumnus, and Berkeley itself as a place, both the campus and the city, has been an incredible place for transformative moments for me in my life. And so this is how I wanted to contextualize what it means for me to be here. I want to go back to 6th grade in order to share why this moment and being part of this class is so important. So 6th grade, I was 12 years old. I went to public schools all my life here in the Central Valley. And as a rural kid, success was always defined as somewhere urban. So from very early on, I thought that in order to be successful, I had to leave home. And 6th grade was the first year that I got a prank call from someone in my class. I don't know who it was to this day, but who called me, asked for me by name, and told me to go home, to go back to the place I came from, and then used a racial epithet. 6th grade was also the year that a substitute teacher came to our class and made fun of my name because it's Japanese, Nikiko. And 6th grade was also the year that I witnessed a neighbor, a boy in my class, being tormented by bullies. And he was tormented through the use of the word farmer. The boys in the class called him farmer in order to demean him and diminish his intelligence, because to them, farmer was synonymous with someone who is dumb. So this is 6th grade. I'm trying to find my place in the world, and I'm fighting against all of these forces that are starting to tell me that I don't belong. The summer of my 6th grade year, our family took an extraordinary trip to Chez Panisse, a place that I had never heard of before. And we just made a one-day trip. It was during the summer, and we never leave during the summer because it's harvest time. So we drove 4 hours up to Berkeley and 4 hours back in the same day. And we didn't even eat at Chez Panisse but we walked through the doors of the kitchen, through this bustling place that I had never stepped foot in before. And I remember walking to the pastry department, and there I saw several plates. Standing on those plates were peaches from our farm, peaches that we grew. And those plates were going out to the dinner service as desserts, whole and complete, unadulterated peaches that we grew. And as a 12-year-old girl, that was the very first time that I realized being a farmer could be something dignified, something beautiful, and something sacred. That we weren't just in a business, we were actually growing food that would enter someone else's body. So that seed in 6th grade stayed there. And it stayed dormant for a while. I went on through my high school career and made it to UC Berkeley. And it was at UC Berkeley that I found my love for understanding power. I studied gender and women's studies. And one class changed my life forever. I took an environmental studies class. And at the end of the semester, our professors invited us to write an essay for extra credit, which, being an overachiever, as all Berkeley students are, I definitely did. And the extra credit prompt was, how has this class changed your view of what you want to do with your life? And people wrote amazing things about changing their eating habits, not driving a car anymore. This was about 20 years ago, by the way. And for my essay, I realized it in the writing of it that the most courageous thing, the hardest thing I could do with my life would be to go home and be a next generation of farmers in my family, stewarding this land, stewarding the soil and the plants that my great-grandparents planted and worked themselves. So Berkeley is a really special place for me, and to be part of this class feels like a revolution in my life. My deepest wish for you students in our learning community is that somewhere along the course of this semester, you too will have one of those transformational moments, a transformational moment that will set your life on a different course. I don't know when that will be. I don't know what the content of that change will look like, but this is my deepest wish for everyone in this class. I think that in order to prime ourselves for those kinds of transformational moments, we need two things. I think we need tenderness, and I think we need grit. And those two things for me correspond with a life of farming, and they correspond with a life of learning. We need to be able to exercise our muscles to make room for truth-telling in our lives and deep listening. So I want to share with you a poem that has really helped me think about how to prime myself for transformational moments. This is a poem called Invitation to Brave Space by Mickey Scott Bay Jones. And this poem was read at the beginning of an activist circle of dinners called the People's Supper. And it was a way of inviting people to create brave space together. And this is what I hope we can do over the course of this class. So I'll just read it aloud, and then there's a short activity that goes along with it. Invitation to brave space. Together, we will create brave space. Because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So let me know if you want us to do a breakout right now, or if we want to pass to Bryant and then come back to the breakout.
What we're going to do is we're going to do a very short breakout right now. Just a 3-minute breakout. I'm going to put people into rooms of 3 and 4 people. And your instruction is to introduce yourselves. Just tell each other your name, your program, where you're come from. And then the big question is, what is the fruit of your childhood? What is the fruit of your childhood? So here we go. We're going to make this quick, but we want you to meet each other. So please turn your videos on so you can see each other, and please everyone participate in this, and we'll see you back in just a few minutes. Howard, are you there? Hi.
Hi, well, do you want to pause the recording?
All right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had a chance to meet some of your fellow classmates and get to know them a little bit. People are coming back in. All right, welcome back. There we go. Everyone is back in the main classroom now. I hope you got a chance to connect a little bit and learn about the fruit of one another's childhood. Thank you, Nikiko, for that stimulating question. It's a pleasure now to introduce another co-creator of the course, a friend and someone who I have great admiration for, Bryant Terry. Bryant is really a remarkable teacher, leader, a very important voice in food. He is an award-winning author. His latest book, Vegetable Kingdom, is a sensation, and I think it was on just about every best of the cookbook lists at the end of last year. And Bryant was with us at the beginning of last semester's class, and he graced us with his thoughts. And I just thought it's been remarkable in the last year, everything that's happened in the world, and so many things that have happened in his own life and his own career. And so thank you, Bryant, for everything you've done to help us shape the flow and the conversations and the content of this semester's class. And I'd like to introduce to you now, Bryant Terry.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Will. So it was almost a year ago to this day that I had the honor and privilege of presenting in last year's opening class. And it seems like yesterday. it seems like 5 years ago. And I have to admit, I'm truly exhausted to the depths of my soul after such a tumultuous year. And I'm sure many of you feel the same way. Yesterday, I grumpily told my wife that I wasn't really excited about today because it was simply a transfer of power from the greater of two evil political parties who are who both care little about everyday people and are beholden to corporate interests and the desires of the money to lead. I said something like that to her. Bay Area talk. But I have to admit, when I woke up this morning, there was a lightness and joy that I didn't anticipate. As I was composing my notes for today's class, I had this nagging feeling that this might not be the best day to kick off this course. You know, shouldn't we be drinking and releasing our collective sigh because of the hell that we've been through over the past 4 years? But then it hit me that today is actually an ideal day to kick off this class. I would argue that two of the biggest lessons that we should take from 2020 are: one, listen to Black women, and two, invest in grassroots movements. In June of last year, we saw uprisings across the nation and then the globe in response to police violence against the extrajudicial murders of Black people by law enforcement officers. Recent figures suggested this was the largest protest movement in United States history. What I want all of us to understand is that the protest movement that erupted last year was not spontaneous. The grassroots organizing, direct action trainings, and political education that ramped up in Black communities after the murder of Michael Brown in 2014 at the hands of Ferguson police officer led to the uprisings that started last year. 2020 ushered in what many people on the left are describing as a movement moment that has the potential to change this country and this world. While we should take time to exhale and recalibrate, I would argue that we need to keep the fire under the feet of this administration. We need to understand that if we are to transform this country and our broken food system, we need to relentlessly challenge power, no matter who is holding it. If we want to see a successful movement to reel in our broken food system, we have to invest in a robust grassroots movement. So as I was writing my notes, composing, putting together thoughts for today, I had a lot to say about how our food justice movement needs to be anti-capitalist, how it has to be led by those most impacted by the problems of our food system, and how we must have a crystal clear vision for a more healthy, just, and sustainable food system to guide us. I'll admit that while I didn't watch the inauguration, many people sent me the clip of Amanda Gorman, the young poet who spoke at inauguration today, and there's just a lot of buzz about it. So it actually moved me to share a poem, and I'm glad Nikiko did. It's going to be a poetry-filled first class. But there's another reason that I wanted to share this poem. And it goes back to when I was actually a graduate student in history at NYU. And I was in a PhD program with an eye on becoming a professor at some point. And the research that I did moved me to commit my adult life to working on food justice and doing all the work that I've done since, I was a student back in the early 2000s. Robin D.G. Kelley, one of the preeminent historians in the United States, was my graduate advisor. And this book, Race Rebels, Culture, Politics, and the Black Working Class, created a lens to which I can understand the food movement and what we need to put in place to actually have a successful movement. And one of the things so the book looks at the mid 20th century and the ways in which working class Black people resisted white supremacy and capitalism, particularly in the workplace. And he was interested in, examining kind of everyday acts of resistance rather than looking, the traditional ways in which historians would look at labor movements. And what he found is that, these kind of everyday acts of resistance were important for just the kind of personal catharsis of the workers who were being exploited, these Black workers, but also, there are these ways of just pushing back in whatever ways they could. It can include things like quitting on the spot, breaking tools, theft, work slowdowns. And so that lens helped me reimagine the way that we all should be, I would argue, thinking about the food movement or the food justice movement. And it helped me understand that these seemingly apolitical acts, such as growing food at home, making meals from scratch, making beautiful art, gathering with family and friends, and loving our people, are equally important as a kind of grassroots activism that is essential for us having a successful movement. I'm clear that these types of daily acts of resistance must happen, and they're equally important as the on the ground organizing and grassroots movement if we are to have a long-term sustainable movement. So one of the things that I always argue is that, people have different ways of learning. I think the term that is often used now is neurodiverse. Some people are fine listening to a heady intellectual lecture, but some people are moved by poetry, some people are moved by song, some people are moved by experiences. And when I even think about the arc of my work or the arc of my life and just kind of the early moments that I was inspired to work around these issues, one of the earliest moments was me hearing a hip hop song called Beef by the hip hop group Boogie Down Productions, the rapper KRS-One, in which he had such a brilliant analysis of the negative impact that factory farming has on animals, human health, and the environment. And so it's a reason that I share song suggestions with the recipes in my book. It's a reason that I suggest films and books. I really want to, create ways for people to be in touch with what's going on and find however they can fit into the movie. This is such a systemic problem that, yes, we need the people on the on the ground in the streets pushing back with power, but we need designers, we need scientists, we need poets, we need people all offering that drop in this bucket that I think will eventually help to create a tipping point. So that being said, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna read this poem. And this is a poem, Will talked about a lot of the kind of growth and I don't know, just abundance that took place in my life in 2020. I framed the course that I appeared at, the Edible Education 101, that first class, as the beginning of my book tour, even though my book didn't come out until February 11th. Obviously, I was disappointed that the tour was abruptly canceled, and I thought that it would disappear. This book that I worked on for 3 years, I just knew it would disappear. And fortunately, a lot of people were doing a lot of home cooking, and the book resonated. And as Will said, it's been one of the most successful books, cookbooks published in North America in 2020. And alongside that, I actually pitched another book when the uprising started in June of last year. I really felt like I wanted to do more to give back in this moment. What could I do more than donating to organizations that I believed in, or taking my family on, these caravan protests. And so I pitched a book project that I had been thinking about for years, inspired by my work at the Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco, where I create public programming. And so I pitched a book called Black Food, which is an anthology that features over 100 people throughout the African diaspora. The book will include recipes, art, and essays, and poetry. So this is actually a poem that was contributed by my friend and colleague, Dr. Gail Patricia Myers, who is she's a cultural anthropologist, a farmer, a poet. She founded the Freedom's Farmers Market in West Oakland, and she's also the founder of Farms to Grow Inc., an NGO that works with organizing locally, nationally, as well as internationally, to improve the lives and future for socially disadvantaged and sustainable small farmers. So without further ado, Rice by Gail Patricia Myers. 3,000 years ago, my people grew rice along the Niger River. Black hands sowed the seeds in water, planted patties of trials and error. In water, solid seeds grew sufficient lines, scattered inside the shaft interior. Eventually, behold the gold, rice. Tall golden stalks threshed and winnowed, stubble trails ready for mounds of fluffy bouquets of fragrant rice. Once cooked, rice filled fed bellies and souls. Satisfied tongues singing to the wind, full hands talking to beating drums, offering to spirit what is theirs, offering to spirit what is theirs, offering to everyone what they can eat and what they can keep. These were my people, the rice people first. The rice people, brutally captured and traded for rice to grow empires' culinary commodities, to build their empire, set their foundations, nails into their walls. But we lay the rows, planted the rice, hands unwilling but forced through migration. People who labored but never ate the fruits, be it indigo, tobacco, sugar, cotton, rice, building, framed the empires. But their hands could never see. Their bent bodies, tall, short, planted, pulled, plucked, harvested, winnowed, and dragging fluff, wafted the shackled rice that drained into the sea with 6 million quieted hearts along the sinuous transatlantic pathways. Grains of rice beneath the sea, 6 million flickering lights, 6 million faces fading into mirages. We eat from a pot of warm rice. We know to remember to never forget the lines beneath the sea. 6 million souls sacrifice. The sea paid the price. The coastal South Carolina sea people grew rice with no taste of liberation, no time to sleep. This was the dish from which we grew strong, knowing uninterrupted 3,000 years of rice, knowing the toil of the rice. When knowing, rice knowing, because we knew rice, we knew wind, the many voices of wind. Because we knew rice, we knew the beauty of water, understood water intonations, like the curves of waves and the pulse of currents. We knew the hums from the four directions. They said, "You are also water. You are also wind." They knew this was true. We are truth. The rice people knew truth. They knew wind. They felt deeply the swelling clouds falling like rain, rain for rice. Clouds, sacrifice for rice. Rain overflowed, covered fields and paddies, yet the leaves remained dry on the trees. There was no water for the roots. We thirst for juices that liberate souls. We hunger for a dish that tastes like rain. When it rains, I think of rice people in my family. Growing up in my house, we ate rice every day. My mom says my dad wanted rice every day. My mom also said his mom probably ate rice every day, and her mom too. My father was a South Carolina low country Geechee, which makes me a Geechee. In my house, growing up, we ate rice every day. This is our dish. In spite of how our dish was made, we have not shame to feel. We make this dish in joy from trials and tribulations, from all those years feeling the mirage of 6 million lights, hearing the wafting of wind songs, seeing the knowing, songs that keep us free in spite of the talk of liberation. The empires' tongues talk of liberation, but we are never taste a scent of rice or the red rain. The rice people first. They knew the water and the rain and finished every day along coastal shores. In my house, we ate rice every day. We also finished, and I learned nearly early how to fish along the water's edge on a backwater creek with snakes crawling, minding their own business with my wooden reed fishing pole with my aunties and uncles. We fished and ate rice as a testimony to our knowing. It was a dish we made, knowing rice and rain. Rice tasting like survival, fish comforting like water. We bleed our ancestors' blood. We give to spirit what is theirs. We keep what we can eat and know what to leave in the fields. We are rice people first. We see beauty in the wind. We taste truth in rain. For this dish we made to remember the 6 million souls beneath the sea. We are rice. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a fruitful class. Unfortunately, I won't be able to join you as much as I anticipated because working on a new book, but feel free to reach out. You can email me through my website, www.bryant-terry.com. And
We're happy you're here. And thank you, Brian. Thanks for all you've done to get us started. Beautiful poem. we're having our own inaugural celebration here tonight. So I'm glad your spirits are lifted. I'd like to let everyone take a break right now. We're going to take a 8-minute break. We're going to come back and do a poll. Please be back in your seat at 7:10. That's 8 minutes from now, and we'll see you shortly. Okay.
Bryant, can you share the name of the poem or the name and the author of the poem once more?
Gail Myers.
Thank you.
Slaves? Is that how many? Same as Jews killed? I didn't know that.
Thank you, Nikiko, for the interlude. Love that energy. Appreciate it. We're all coming back. Let's see how prompt everybody is. Also, I want to just thank all the folks that are contributing ideas and suggestions for resources and readings into the chat. That's a really nice place to do it. We will save the chat each week, and maybe we'll curate it as well and add things back that people reference into our resource list. I'm going to give everyone another minute to come back, and we'll get started. I'm glad to see some people are getting a little snack or food. One of the things that we're going to try to do this year is inspire you with recipes and some brief cooking demos, and we're going to have a surprise guest in just a few minutes. Okay, well, welcome back. In the spirit of Brave Space and building on the perspectives that Kenzo and Nikiko and Bryant shared, we are going to put you into small breakout rooms again. I'm going to turn it back over to Nikiko, and she's going to set up the Brave Space breakout opportunity. Back over to you, Nikiko, while I set up the rooms.
Thanks, Will. So I know the Zoom world is kind of funny, because when we do breakout rooms, we get kind of like thrown into one space and then pulled back. But we're going to try to use these tools to give you all a chance to talk to each other and to build relationships of learning together. So we wanted to create a breakout, just a couple-minute breakout around this question. And I really think Bryant so beautifully modeled Brave Space by sharing his wholeness in how he is today and this morning, and you know, specifically thinking about everyday acts of resistance. That's really resonant with me. And so we're going to turn ourselves to inward a little bit. So when we move into our breakout rooms, we're going to ask ourselves the question: how can we create a culture of brave space in our Zoom classroom? How can we create a culture of brave space in our Zoom classroom? And what does brave space require of each of us? What does it require of you individually? What does it require of us as a community together? So we'll go into our breakout rooms, and the way we're going to get there is you are going to be assigned a group number, and that group number will correspond to the Jamboard. Oh wait, I'm sorry. That's going to be our last. Sorry,
Yeah,
that's going to be our last breakout. For this breakout, you're just going to be in a small group, and you'll just get to discuss, how do you want to make this learning space a brave space?
Eva, I'm going to suggest that perhaps we create a discussion board on our B Courses site so that we can maybe capture some of the brave space ideas. So if you are so inclined, again, one of the things we're really trying to do in the course this semester is foster connection, interaction, more getting to know one another. So Eva, this week, why don't you maybe tomorrow morning create a discussion board called Brave Space? And it would be wonderful, Nikiko, if you have any time this week to maybe check in on that and maybe moderate it a little bit, or ask some questions. And maybe next week we'll ask those of you that contribute to the board that we will share that. So now we have another special guest and a return visit from last year. I love the continuity and the cyclicality the class. It's really magical to kind of behold everyone's growth. And well, without further ado, I'm just going to let Bryant come back and introduce Rohana, who Alice referred to earlier as the youngest protege at Chez Panisse ever. But maybe Bryant can do a good service to Rohana and introduce her before she dazzles us. Bryant, are you there?
Yes. I mentioned earlier that one of the lessons that I think we should all learn from 2020 is listen to Black women. And I should have maybe included listen to young Black women. And just to be clear, when I say that, kind of being, jocular, but also it's, when we talk about, intersectionality, which I'm sure is a term you all have heard. This theory, which was started by a law professor at UCLA, Kimberly Crenshaw, it simply asserts that people are often disadvantaged by multiple sources of oppression: their race, their class, their gender. And people argue that if we are to look for answers to kind of liberatory practices, we should look to those who have, these multiple ways in which they experience oppression and marginalization to figure out how we can liberate everyone. So Rohana's the future. She's 13 years old. Well, at the age of 13, she's 16 years old now. Sorry, Rohana. But at the age of 13, she was appeared on Bravo's Top Chef spinoff, Top Chef Junior, and she was runner-up. She has cooked at the James Beard House, Chez Panisse, Ecoy in London. I'll say this, I've been a friend and mentor of Rohana a few years. I'm very excited about a big project that we'll be announcing probably next month that we're collaborating on. That's going to be a game changer. And, I'll say that as a 16-year-old, she displays a level of maturity, focus, and brilliance that I often don't see in people until they're in their 30s. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our brilliant Oakland's own wonderkin, as I call her, Rahanna Bisseret Martinez.
Hi, thank you so much, Bryant. I have just been super appreciative all day about getting to do this demo. And yeah, just thank you so much, Professor and Bryant and everyone watching. I am doing a garlic pan fried plantain. Some people call it plantain, some people call it plantain. So it just depends on how you grew up saying it or whatever you're comfortable with. And basically all the ingredients are just garlic, a little bit of parsley, some butter, a little bit of oil, and some salt. And it's just a really quick recipe that is great for a snack or just a side dish. And yeah, I'll get started. I have my garlic here that I just minced up. And it says it calls for about 2 cloves of garlic, but if you have one of those huge, like giant pieces of garlic where they're like the size of a quarter, you can just use that, just one of those. But then it also depends on, what you like and what your palate likes. And if you like more garlic, you can add more garlic. I feel like a lot of people read a recipe and it says, oh, 2 cloves of garlic, and you'll add like 5. So I think it just depends on. And then this is heating up with a little bit of oil so that we flavors the pan before we add in the plantain. And this is a really, really ripe plantain. It's kind of the best for this recipe just because it's super soft and it's got all the sugars at its like most sugary time in its ripening stage. And so when you're using this kind, it's maybe less soft, it's less sweet. People like to boil it and then mash it and fry it, bake it. There's all different versions. Plantain, I'm just gonna cut this up right now, but plantain is used kind of globally. It originated in Southeast Asia, but it's really popular in Southern America, especially in like the Dominican Republic, as well as Puerto Rico. It's used in Mexican and Haitian cuisines as well. And I just think it's really cool how this one kind of ingredient is used around the world in a bunch of different ways. It also is really popular in the Caribbean and Africa. Southern or Central Africa is actually responsible for half of all of the plantain distribution in the world. So I think that's actually really cool. I'm just cutting them up into like diamond medallion sizes or like ovals. I'm not sure if you can see my cutting board anymore, but I'll show the pan when the garlic starts to heat up. But yeah, I think this recipe is just a super easy one. It can be made really with these few ingredients, but also can be transformed into different dishes. It's a really sweet fruit, and so you can make it into like a dessert and just remove the garlic and the parsley. But this is what the size of your plantain should look like. And just again, this is like the beginning stage, and then the middle stage, and then the stage you want to get it to is that like really dark color. I can start to hear the garlic kind of crackle, and I just want that to get a little bit darker. This is on medium heat, but I'm going to turn it down to low once it starts to get a little bit of color, so that the pan's not too hot when we put the plantain in. I think it's really cool how kind of garlic has kind of formed a culture here in California with Gilroy and their garlic festival, and Christopher Ranch, who produces, I think, like over 1 million pounds of garlic a year, but just so many other garlic farmers here in California, and just the culture of garlic at Chez Panisse, Bastille Day. They do a whole celebration of garlic, which is super cool. And I mean, I love cooking with it, so I just think it's a great ingredient to add to certain dishes. It's starting to cook a little bit more. I can start to smell it. And this is actually also, usually, this is like a play on garlic fries, but usually it's made with just raw garlic and it's put in oil, and then that kind of flavors the fries. But this time it's going to be kind of toasted in the pan and turned into this really nice toasty garlic flavor that gets rid of some of the spiciness of raw garlic, which I really like. Okay, so this is getting a little bit brown, but it's not too dark yet, so I'm going to turn it on low. And I can actually see if I can show. So yeah, it's like a little bit dark, but it's not like burning or getting brown yet. So I'm just turning it down to just slowly cook it until we add the plantain in. There we go. And then I actually have some parsley here that I'm going to take apart and just slightly chop it up to place on top of the plantain. You can use any type of herb that you like. If you're not the biggest fan of parsley, I think it's really good, but there are some parsley people who think it tastes like soap and different things. But I really think it complements this dish. I think it's like a classic flavor of like parsley and garlic. So I think it equals about altogether a tablespoon of parsley. And it's just like a nice amount that just gives kind of like a refresher from the really sweet plantain and the like crispy and super flavorful garlic. So now the garlic is pretty much toasted and cooked. So I'm just going to use a wooden spatula and put it back in that same container where I had the uncooked garlic. The reason I'm using a wooden spatula is because I find that it tends to not scratch up certain pan surfaces, especially if you use like nonstick, which can like leach really like harmful like bits into your food. I find that like using a wooden spatula is really helpful and just like healthier as well. I'm gonna add in just a little bit of butter, and you can use any butter substitute that you want. You can use more oil, you can use plant-based butter. It really just depends on what you like to eat. But I think the plantain really likes fat and oil just to crispen up the edges. And I'm actually going to cut up this parsley over here just to get it into smaller bite-sized pieces so that you can really like taste it and bite. And then it looks like our butter is melted all the way, and I'm starting to hear it kind of sizzle. I think you can also use something butterier like coconut oil, and also just natural sweetness of both coconut oil and butter kind of complements the sweetness of plantain. And I'm just gently placing these in here because since it's so ripe, it's really easy to kind of smash it with a spatula. And so I'm just using my fish spatula, which I really love because it can just gently put certain things into the pan without kind of having to scrape and do all those things that kind of usually scrape and mess up certain dishes. So that's what I like about it. But then also, this is a 10-inch pan, so it has like the right amount for one plantain. And you can use a bigger pan if you want to do more than one. This recipe is really easy to double if you have more people. But also, you can do it in a smaller one, but you have to be careful to use smaller batches just so you don't overcrowd the pan. And this is going to cook for about maybe 2 or 3 minutes on each side. I like to check the edges, and they kind of lift a little bit after they're browned. And I think that they get crispy, and I can really see kind of how it is starting to cook. I have just a quarter teaspoon of salt, and that's just enough. You don't really need that much salt in this recipe just because there is already so many flavors, and we just want the salt to kind of bring it out a little bit. And so we're just going to sprinkle that on one side and then save the other 1/8 of a teaspoon for the other side. And here I have my serving plate, and you can use a like rounded plate, you can use a bowl. I really like this one because it kind of lets you have a lot of surface area if you have like a few people that you're serving. But one tip that I find is really good about using garnishes or any type of sprinkle of anything is you can add just a little bit on the bottom before you put the actual dish on top, just so that when you garnish it at the end and the like food is already there, you can scoop up the food with the garnish being on the top and the bottom, so you kind of get all the flavor in it. I really like this also because of the garlic being used before, so that you can kind of taste it actually like into the plantain and kind of infuse it. Let's see. Almost there. I think it could be a little bit crispier, so I'm just gonna let it cook. And it's kind of up to preference. I think it's really good to be crispy and golden. Some people like it kind of more crispy. Some people like it just straight soft. So it's really up to whatever you like. I like the crispy plantain. I think that's the best way to eat it in this scenario. So I think that's like my method. So once we have the garnishes and the parsley done, that's pretty much all that we really have to do for the recipe until the plantain is done cooking. And so it's just really simple recipe. It's a really quick recipe. I really like it because it doesn't take that much attention or time. So if you have a whole breakfast buffet or a dinner that you're making a dinner party out of, you can just put those on the pan either at the end just to have something quick, or you can cook it ahead of time, and then when it comes to eating it, you can just put it in the oven. So I think, yeah, this is just a really good recipe for when you're at home and you also don't have a lot of ingredients. So I just like it.
That is so wonderful. And I think, I really appreciate that you picked a dish that is also kind of a treat for your family or your roommates or your friends. And we posted your recipe to the B Courses site. And
Awesome.
I was just going to run, while you're finishing the cooking, I was just going to run a little poll so that we could find out from the students kind of how they learn to cook. So here's another poll, everybody, that you can take. And again, just as a reminder, this is how we take attendance in the class. So if you're here to get credit, it's a good idea to participate in the poll. Gives us a little idea on how did you learn, or how are you learning to cook, and gives Rohana a little bit of a break to turn the plantains over. They're looking pretty good. I think I'm learning that we should probably do the cooking demo earlier because I'm getting so hungry.
Rahanna, hi, it's Bryant. I have a question. Do you tend to drain your fried plantains on some paper towel or a clean kitchen towel, or do you just put them directly on the serving platter?
Yeah, so you can really do either or. I like paper towels, but if you have a slotted spoon and you can just let that oil drip back into the pan and use it to flavor other ingredients that you're making, that's also super cool. So I like to do either or. I think for this recipe, doing the paper towel is kind of the best option because I'm not going to be saving the oil for something else. But I think either way is a really great option.
Great. Here's just so everybody can see the results from the poll. Most of you are learning from your family and some friends, some people learning on social media and blogs, a couple people on looking at Netflix or Masterclass. Oh, Bryant, that's not such a good sign on the cookbook front from this audience, but maybe we'll make that go up. And a few of you not quite cooking yet. I hope this class really inspires you to do that. So that looks delicious. In the interest of time, Rohana, we're going to wrap up now. And
Awesome.
it's such a great gift to have you back with us. And I wish there was a way that you could hear everyone cheer for you on Zoom. Maybe actually turn your sound on, everybody, and just give Rohana a little.
Yeah.
That is so great. Thank you, Rohana.
Thank you so much.
It's great. So great to have you here. Okay, welcome back to the regularly scheduled programming. We're going to do a couple more things before the evening is over. I will share with you just a little bit about the class and what we're intending to do. This is a different kind of class. This is really an amalgamation of a lot of disciplines in one place. As we mentioned at the beginning of the class, we started this in the journalism school with Michael Pollan, and then for a year or two, it was domained at the College of Natural Resources, and now it's in the business school. And I always get a kick out of being, from the business school and having so many different perspectives presented. But we're lucky that the Haas School of Business has been a gracious host for such a multidisciplinary program. I like to think of the class as really being a class about leadership and how leaders make change in the world. And during the course of the class, I'm going to help you develop sort of 3 areas of knowledge, which are going to come into a play and use for you. And the first is what I like to think of as our own personal food ethics. How are our values aligned with our food choices? Believe it or not, the many choices that we make consciously or unconsciously every day are manifest in very powerful ways in the world. They influence others, they influence your family and your friends. And we're seeing right now during the pandemic such dramatic changes in eating and eating behaviors as people are eating at home. We're seeing tremendous changes to our impact on the environment in many ways. So what we're going to concentrate on throughout the semester is to develop our own kind of moral philosophy about food. How do we want to show up in the world as eaters? And hopefully during the course of the semester, you'll have an opportunity to interact with people who will inspire you and guide you and offer you options for how you want to become more conscious and mindful, and most importantly, more intentional about how you want to eat. And not just what you want to eat, but beginning to understand how what you eat is connected to everything else. And so that's the second theme of the class. The second theme is about what I call food systems intelligence. We're going to all become systems thinkers, and we're going to learn how one thing connects and influences another. We're going to learn about a lot of the visible and invisible relationships and interdependencies in food. We're going to trace the system from soil to what I like to call soil to soul. So how the food moves from one point in the food system to the next, and all the hands and people and technologies and corporations and organizations and policies and regulations and incentives and disincentives, they all come into play to create the food system that we have. And a lot of people talk about a broken food system. We have a food system that was really built for both convenience and cost, and doesn't really take into account a lot of the hidden costs or the true costs of food. And we're going to learn a lot about the true costs of food during the semester. The third theme in the class, so we have ethics and sort of moral philosophy, we have food systems intelligence, and then the third part is what I like to call entrepreneurial agency. So with entrepreneurial agency, we develop the vision, the confidence, and the skills to turn an idea into something real and to take action and make change. And we draw from the playbooks of organizers, of activists, of entrepreneurship, and we're going to actually practice that in the class. And during this class, one of the things that I like to do is bring a lot of people who are excellent at manifesting vision into action. I like to think of them as pragmatic visionaries. I mean, Bryant is a pragmatic visionary with bringing his voice and his vision around food into cookbooks, and now collaborating with Rohana. Similarly, Nikiko has a lot of entrepreneurial agency in her family farm. So I will be helping you. My background really is as an entrepreneur in food, and I'll be bringing you comments and tools, and throughout the semester we'll be learning those types of things. So that's just a quick overview. The class will meet every Wednesday evening like this. The graduate students meet on Thursday morning. We've done a lot of work on the B Courses site. I would love for all of you to delve into the B Courses site. Certainly Kenzo would appreciate that too. I'm just kidding. I would really appreciate it, and the teaching team would. I'd really like to introduce the teaching team to you now. They are here again to help create a very welcome, a safe, a brave space for us to collaborate. They are graduate students in the business school. I'm really thrilled with the opportunity to work with them, and I'm grateful that they volunteered to be here to support you. So Eva is your graduate student instructor. Eva, why don't you come on, and then you can introduce the rest of the teaching team, okay?
Hi, everyone. Good to see some faces, and looking forward to meeting you all this semester. My name is Eva. I'm a second year MBA at Haas, and thrilled to be joining you on this learning journey. Please reach out. I'm very passionate about food and food systems change, and super happy to connect in office hours or other time I'm here for all of you and have a wonderful teaching team this semester. Would love to introduce Kelsey.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kelsey. I will be working with all. I don't know if you could hear me there, but I'll be working with the grad students. So Thursday sections, you'll get to see me, and I'm really excited. And I'll kick it to Allison for the next intro.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison. I'm also a second year MBA student, and I'll be a reader for this course. And I'm really happy to have gotten to meet some of you today in the breakout rooms and looking forward to getting to know you more throughout the semester. Then I'll kick it to Pooja.
Thanks, Allison. Hi, everyone. My name is Pooja. I'm a first year full-time MBA student, and I will also be a reader for the course. Like the rest of the teaching team, super excited to be here and looking forward to meeting all of you, and extremely passionate about food and cooking. And if anybody ever wants a recipe recommendation or a cookbook, don't be afraid to say hi. I will kick it to... Thanks, Sean, for blasting me in the chat. I will kick it to Jordan.
Thanks, Pooja. Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan, also a first year full-time MBA student. And I just want to reiterate what everyone else has said. We're so excited to be the teaching team this semester, and we have a great lineup of speakers coming. And I'm always here as a source of support as well. Feel free to reach out to me. I actually came to Haas because I wanted to pivot into food, and I'm very passionate about creating change and creating a more sustainable food system. So always feel free to reach out to me if you want to discuss that. And I'm excited to get to know more of you this semester.
Thank you, teaching team. I'm just going to share my screen again and just take you for a quick peek into the B Courses site. It is very comprehensive, and we really are going to be using it as kind of our homeroom this year. So I really encourage you every week to check it. This week, we've added a special assignment because we were just able to confirm that Vice President Al Gore is going to join us live next week. And we have put in the assignment about a 15-minute video that he made for his Climate Underground conference, which took place just last October. And Alice was there too. So please come prepared by watching that video on your own time this week and prepare a question for Vice President Gore that you would like to discuss. And you'll be able to submit that in the assignments section of the B Courses. I hope I got that right. And we will review those questions. Please get those questions in ideally by Tuesday of next week so that we have some time on Wednesday morning to review them. And if your question is selected, you'll get a chance to speak with Vice President Gore directly. And he's going to talk about food and climate. He, as many of you know, is a Nobel laureate, our former vice president. Some of us actually think of him maybe as our president at times. He is a model of dignity and grace, and especially at this moment in time where we have been experiencing challenges to the peaceful transition of power. Many of you probably weren't even born yet, but Vice President Gore played a very seminal role in demonstrating the values of integrity and leadership that we value. He's gone on to be really probably the foremost educator in about climate and the perils of climate change. And he is a relentless advocate and supporter. And one of the things he does so well is he interacts in many different sectors. He works in obviously the policy sector and the government sector. He's working in the scientific sector, and he's working in the business sector. So it's a real gift that he will be with us next week. So take good advantage of that. Come prepared, do a little homework and research on your own to familiarize yourself with Vice President Gore's place in the universe at this moment, and why it's special that we get to be with him. So With that, I would like to bring Nikiko back. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to exercise our creativity. We're going to use another tool tonight. And again, I'm going to beg for your patience with all the technology. Every week we come on Zoom, they've changed some setting or some, so this isn't as easy as it looks. And unfortunately, we don't have a a backdrop of technical assistance. We're doing it all ourselves in real time, but we are going to experiment now with using the Jamboard tool as a way of sort of synthesizing our learning tonight. Nikiko, back over to you.
Thanks, Will. Yes, we are indeed stretching ourselves and using every minute of this class. So we are going to give you a synthesizing moment. So we've set up Jamboards to let you ruminate on 3 questions, and I put them in the chat just in case. If you have trouble getting into the Jamboard, just put them in the chat, or if you're a community member and don't have access to Jamboards, please fill it out in the chat. So for the rest of you, we're assigning you to a room number. So pay attention to your room number and find your group number in the Jamboard list in the folder. And you will fill out in the Jamboard 3 prompts. 1, what's something that stood out to you from today's class? 2, write a question that's lingering for you or inspired from today. And 3, who are your food heroes? So there's sticky notes set up in the Jamboard, so you could just grab one and go for that. So I think Eva is going to put the Jamboard's link. Yep, it's in the chat. So find the board that corresponds to your breakout room number in the folder. And if you have any questions, you can use the question or put questions in the chat if you have trouble.
And
so we'll give you just like a couple minutes and then we'll.
How many breakout rooms are we going to make? Are we going to make them with, how many people would you like in each?
So I think we're doing 10 people in each room.
Okay, great. So we'll have 16 breakout rooms.
Yep, so Alyssa, just take note of the number when you get the invitation to pop out.
Okay, so shall I go breakout into breakout rooms now? Does everybody have their Jamboard, or should we wait a few more minutes?
Go ahead and do the breakout rooms so then people know which Jamboard.
Okay, here we go. But if you'd like to stay, we'll also keep the Zoom room open in case you'd like to interact with your fellow classmates. So have a great week. See you soon. Let's see if I can get this going.
Hey everybody, stop clicking around. I am in the woods with some water going in the background near my.
Sorry about that. We always have to pay for ads these days. I'm gonna skip the ad and I'm gonna get the sound back on.
Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Thank you all. Have a great week.
Things you should never mix with water. Mascara. Homie, like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikiko. Thank you, Pooja. Thank you, Eva.
Thank you. This is super fun.
You want to stop the recording?
Yeah, can you do that?
I cannot. I think you might need to.
I can't see it now. It's weird. It's weird. When I'm sharing my screen, I can't find the controls to, let's see, stop